today is National Mentoring Day, and I've thought, well, this is a great time to do this, just to take some time to acknowledge mentors, to thank a mentor, find a mentor, be a mentor, show up for mentoring. And so I have a little bit of an icebreaker activity that I'd like you in the chat box, if you would you please think of someone in your life, either who was or is a mentor, and in the chat, tell us who that is, and take a moment to think about, I'm sure you have more than one, but one in particular that comes to mind. Okay. Yes, Christine. I was just looking at that this morning too. Ah, okay. Yes. All right. Very cool. Well, I think, oh, she's on a roll now, Christine. Ah, yes, she's an author, Jonathan. Yeah, she does some interesting stuff, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Gabriella is here. Glad you could join us, Gabriella. So just to keep it moving, I think we can see that it might be an author, it could be your mother, it could be a pastor, it could be a professor, it can be a professional mentor, Paul Bellows, it could be, Diana, what is the, Stephanie at Startup Unidos, what is her role? Tell us about her.
Well, she was a former coworker in a Time Before Time, and then she was on the board for Tucson Young Professionals, which is where I got a big start, and she opened a lot of doors and opportunities, and she used to run the Young Entrepreneurs Academy with me, which I think is when I had met you. So she's done a lot of stuff, and she runs Startup Unidos, a cross-border collaboration.
All right. Well, good. So I think you can see that it's a diversity. Mentors come in all different forms, shapes, sizes. Sometimes they're short-term, sometimes they're long-term. Is everyone here familiar with the book that I wrote, or have you read it? I know Christine is a story contributor. All right, Diana, thank you. Jonathan, have you had a chance to look at the book or read the book?
No, I haven't. And actually, I would really love to have that opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk about that later. And Carolyn, I know that you are looking to take a more active role in being a mentor to other people. So if you haven't grabbed a book, and I'm not just trying to promote book sales, but it is kind of a handy resource. It's got kind of an overview with a lot of bullet points in it. And then the second half of the book is some amazing stories. And Gabriella, are you here? You're silenced, and I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing what your role in mentoring currently is, because I think it's fascinating.
Hi, sorry, I'm doing a bit of multitasking, but my name is Gabriela Perez and I work at the U of A for the Women in Science and Engineering program, helping facilitate the mentorship program, pairing U of A students with faculty, academics, and people from industry as mentors.
It's a big job, big job. And as I understand, it's specifically science and engineering. So students and professionals that are in STEM related fields. Is that correct?
Yes, anyone who identifies in STEM is welcome.
Great, great, great. Well, I would like to keep moving forward here. What's your definition of mentor? Because we've got some very experienced sage mentors here. But, you know, the question I frequently get is, well, what's the difference between a coach and a mentor? Let's just have an open dialogue. That's why I really like to have Zoom meetings with, as much as possible, with the speakers open, so we can encourage an ongoing dialogue. But what would be, anyone just pop up, what would be your answer to what is a mentor?
I'll share. Actually, I think I've had these conversations with Carolyn before in the past. And, you know, it's just my definition, because I believe I've been both, and or I am both. So I guess my definition of a mentor would be someone guiding someone through a process of learning. Somebody who has more wisdom, more experience, and teaching them, kind of bringing them under their wing, you know, maybe in a workplace environment. There could be an official, you know, mentor-mentee relationship where they meet regularly, and but also the mentor is living their core values. They're walking their talk, and so they're demonstrating those skills with how they live. And so, but it's also helping a young person come on board and learn a little bit more about what it is they're doing. I believe as a coach, and actually almost as a certified coach, because I'm that close to getting my PCC certification. Yeah, I just got notification today that all my material passed and I just have to take the final exam. And that was a lot of work. That was a year's worth of work. So I think as a coach, there is a different level of support. Yes, it is being a mentor, but it's actually helping them see their blind spots, you know, having that accountability, you know, creating, like in a relationship, in a I call it a container. And so watching that person grow and evolve, and watching the aha moments happen, but keeping them accountable to the action steps that they take. And so it, you know, I guess it could be either way. So that's kind of my definition.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have an idea? And there's no right or wrong answer. I'm just curious what other people's perspective, what differentiates a mentor from a coach? How are those roles different?
I think, Tricia, that a mentor is sharing your expertise. I mean, I know in Rotary, when we have new members come on board, we always assign a mentor, someone who has had more experience within the organization, to be that person's mentor to help them along.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always, you know, I always felt kind of strange, because I respect very much, like what Chris is talking about getting certified as a coach. I mean, I think that the level is a little bit different than it is for a mentor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a good distinction. Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Well, I guess how I see mentors is they're like teachers, kind of, but teachers mainly for people past, you know, grade school and all that. And I mean, you can have it for all kinds of different genres, you know, but I guess I think of it as in a business, and it doesn't mean that the mentor, you know, has been a photographer or been a writer or anything, but they understand like archetypes of how to make things work, you know, proven methods for success, you know, and these are maybe things that, you know, the photographer or the writer or whatever, you know, they may not really have much experience or knowledge with at all. So, you know, it's like puzzle pieces connecting to create a whole, you know.
Interesting perspective. I don't know, Renee or Gabriella, if you have any ideas.
I was just gonna say that I picture a mentor more literally as a guide, kind of like a therapist, in that they listen to you and they kind of present different things, but they're not really like, this is what you should do. And since I've done mentoring and coaching to a certain extent, and I'm kind of like a very I'm a strategic thinker, so I'm like, this is the plan. I think so. For mentoring for me has been like, I have to take a step back and be more like, this is more like self-directed. Like you're giving them options and then for them to kind of navigate it. You're giving them the resources, but it's really about them kind of taking control of what they want to do and deciding. And so that's how I kind of think of it, kind of almost like a therapy thing, when you're really not supposed to say, well, hey, this is what I would do. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I think an awful lot of the time people believe that the mentor has to be a sage, old, experienced person. But I'll tell you, there are 5 different generations represented in our workforce these days. And I often find myself in a corner with technology. And every time I reach out, it's usually I get mentored by someone in technology who's maybe half my age. So I see mentoring as more of an experience-based than an age-based. Although it typically is, hey, Betsy, hello. Betsy Bolding, I know through SARSEF. All right.
She's a mentor of mine too.
You guys know one another?
Just saying hello to others I know, and welcome. Nice to meet some other new people. Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, Betsy Folding.
Hi, Carolyn. Okay.
Yes. And so we're just talking about what we feel are our own perception of what you see as a mentor, who makes someone a mentor. And it was so amazing when I decided to write this book last year, and I was dumbfounded because I put out a request to about 32 women asking for a short story on their experience about mentoring. And I have 29 stories in this book, and I was just blown away. And they're all so different. They have a different flavor, different circumstance, and the age range is over 50 years. From my niece, who was 23 years old, who wrote about a mentor, all the way up to a woman who runs a global women's leadership, and she's been she's an amazing, Diana, you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, so no matter what age you are, I think it's just really important to embrace the power of mentoring, because I know for me, you know, mentoring can be an ongoing long-term relationship where it goes, typically it would be an agreement. If you decide I want a mentor and you are intentional, it doesn't just organically happen. That kind of mentoring relationship might be effective. You need to give it about a year, I think, to really see if the fruits are going to be, you know, if the relationship, if the mentorship is going to be fruitful. You need about a year. But some mentorships go on for a lifetime, like Oprah Winfrey and Maya Angelou, or let's see, Luke Skywalker and Yoda, or there are mythical mentors that are pretty funny, but it can be short-term, long-term, formal, informal. But from what I'm understanding, and this is part of why I wanted to have open kind of conversation with people, because I'm a little bit doing market research here. I want to know, in the workplace, is mentoring taking place intentionally, or does it kind of happen accidentally when it does happen? And if it's not happening with very much frequency or intention, what can we do about that? Because I do think it's such a powerful tool to leverage the skills and experience of someone who's been there, done that successfully, with someone who's trying to figure things out, and just catapult that time and some of the potholes that a person might step in along the path in their career to moving to the next level. Any feedback or ideas about that?
I have some feedback just from the leaders I'm working with right now. It's interesting as you're sharing that, as they're some of them are mid-level managers, and so they're learning to be a leader because they may have been part of the team before as a peer, and now they're a leader. And so the first thing that I noticed is that, number one, they don't have time because they're still learning themselves. And so, but what I also witnessed them doing is learning more to listen to their team and really hear what their challenges are if they can help them. But right off the bat, there may not be enough time. And so, but I think also it's about, in the relationship, like you talked about, Tricia, about having an agreement of being a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And, I agree that I will mentor you. Maybe there's a time when we get together on a weekly or monthly basis, because otherwise it might just happen automatically. And so I think if there is a relationship, I think it should be established. And in the workplace, what I witness right now is everybody's just so busy with catching up with, the workplace is so different. Staff is leaving. There's gaps in there. So people are having to work harder, do more than their own job. And it's just a very different time in the workplace. So it could be at some point where it is actually an awareness, and it is intentionally brought into a workplace, and maybe identifying those that would like to be a mentor or a mentee, and then making matches. Because I heard you talk about that with the U of A program. I think it's ideal if both people are in agreement, because otherwise it may just move by the wayside.
Right. I agree. And when you're talking, Chris, I'm sorry, I was listening to what you're saying, but at the same time, I was kind of formulating, oh my gosh, I'm connecting. And so I'm busted because I was listening, but I was also listening to respond. That 77% of companies with mentoring programs say they improve employee retention and job performance. 81% of millennials working with mentors report they're twice as likely to stay with that company for more than 5 years. So, the metaphor that I have is like trying to learn to water ski. If you don't get that ski on right, get yourself centered, get the line taut before you say hit it, you're just going to get drugged behind the boat with water going up your nose and eventually let go of the line. You're never going to get up and be smooth sailing. So I hear the angst and all of the problems that employers and companies are having with the massive turnover, but the investments in getting some foundational things up and going could mitigate some of that angst and turnover? I mean, am I a Pollyanna, or is that realistic?
I think if it's agreed upon as a program to bring forward, I think it could definitely happen. I like to put on my rose-colored glasses and say this is ideal, and then reality kind of steps in. And so I just think there needs to be some sort of an agreement with folks participating in the program, and making sure that it's structured properly.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really wonderful that I think in the mentoring piece where a mentee knows that they can reach out to their mentor. And whether it's in the middle of a crisis moment or just regular ongoing growing and evolving of their own skill set. So it's, yeah, I think it'd be fantastic. I love your data, Tricia. I think that's really important. And knowing that, millennials and younger generation do want something like that. I think there's this body of knowledge between, your more seasoned employees, and how do we relate that to the younger generation? Because my own experience is I went back to school at the age of 48. And so I was the oldest one in the class. And, but it's interesting where some of the younger students wanted to be in my group because maybe I was more like the mom. And I organized things. I had systems and structure, but they taught me technology because, I didn't know how to do this. So we were learning from each other.
That's reverse mentoring. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And I think that the situation right now is ripe for those kind of relationships. And again, not to plug it, but I wrote the book and I've just found myself going down this path of pursuing mentoring, and I wrote it, women empowering women. Please don't be offended, but Jonathan, I see typically a lot of women are reluctant to ask, whether it's for a raise, a promotion, a starting salary that's higher, or to ask for a mentor. And I just wanted to throw a lifeline out there, more specifically to women. But I was really surprised because two different men read the book, and I didn't even know that they had read it, and gave me 5-star book reviews and said, why are you promoting this book for women? Because men all have daughters, sisters, girlfriends, wives, nieces, co-workers that are women. We need to understand how we can support women. So this is a book to promote for women, but it's also it's a handy reference for guys to understand how can you support the women in your life, in your world. And Chris, you keep referring to an agreement. So I wrote the book, and knowing you can read a book and go, oh, those are great ideas. But unless you have a plan to implement the ideas, it just goes back on the bookshelf and you go, oh, that was a good book. So I wrote a course and I've printed it out just so that I had it, but it's a self-paced online course with 7 modules. And one of the things in there is, in the planning part, I give them some templates for an agreement. So I know that time is of the essence. And I think for somebody who's interested in getting involved in a mentoring program, it'd be a very easy thing for them to just pick this up and go, oh, I have 7 modules locked and loaded, ready to go. I just implement these and get a group coaching to go along with it to kind of get that extra encouragement if they choose to. And yeah, so does anyone have any?
May I ask a question?
Yeah, sure, Carolyn. Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, it just kind of popped into my mind. What do you think are the qualities of a good mentor?
That's a chapter in the book.
Yeah, I was hoping that would be the truth, because I think that that's something that's really important to think about yourself when you're thinking about wanting to be a mentor. Like, I think that one of the most important aspects of a good mentor is being an avid listener. Avid listener.
Carolyn.
And there are not that many people out there that are that avid about their listening, because they're always ready to jump in and interrupt about something about themselves. So I just think that that is one of the qualities that I think are very important in a mentor.
I love it. And you know what? Next Thursday, I'm doing a workshop presentation for SCORE about listening.
Oh, nice.
So, and it's free, so you
Yeah.
can go on the SCORE website and sign up for it. I think Renee is going to be there. So you hit the nail
Yep.
on the head, because that is on page 31 in my book, all about how to figure out what kind of listener you are. You're absolutely spot on, Carolyn. Characteristics of a good mentor: trust and respect, inspiring hope, an exceptional listener, and other characteristics not limited to: they're patient, prepared, a leader, a teacher, a challenger, positive role model, successful in their field, have a can-do attitude, invested in wanting to help others, they're honest, clear communicator, brings out the best in the mentee, inquisitive, growth mindset, and they work hard to, it's like 2 pages. So thank you for asking the question.
I think you've got it covered. I do think listening is really important, and it's hard for a lot of people to do that. I appreciated your statistics, because that data actually surprised me. In my own experience, the mentoring has sort of been more accidental and has just happened rather than be planned. And sometimes those planned ones were less successful. And I think the most important thing, if you're going to set up a program of some sort, and I keep turning things off because I'm swatting flies that are driving me crazy. Anyway, the pairing is really crucial. How that happens and whether it works. I mean, how they're put together for mentoring. If it's done by a company or a program overall, the pairing is the most important thing. And I think it's not exactly science entirely. It's some other piece that I can't find the right words for. I apologize.
No, and Gabriella and Diane, I know you're in the Tucson Young Professionals, and Zach Yenser was telling me that this last year that they did a mentorship program. Were you involved in that at all?
Well, yes, I created the first iteration of the mentorship program that they're running now, but it is not the same that it was then. But I am actually also part of the Emerging Leaders Council, which is the Tucson Metro Chamber's mentorship program. So I agree very much with whoever was speaking last. And I was paired originally last year with a mentor who's in nonprofit, which would, make sense to be a match for what I do. However, this year, what I have gotten out of my mentorship pairing with the vice president of a national insurance company has been light years difference between what I had last year and this year. So it's been really great to be with a professional mentor, somebody who trains to be a mentor. And I have learned so much from her. She has changed my mindscape, and it's been I'm really grateful to have that opportunity. But like you said, you can be matched up with somebody and get nothing out of it. So I'm glad that I've had more than 1 year to go through it.
Huh. And I'm curious because Gabriella, that's a big part of your job. And I don't know if you're currently, if you can hear us, but matching university women with professionals in the field. I'm sure that's just a really big part of what you're doing.
Yeah, and we try to match people based on their field and their area of study, but also something that I really take into account is when giving the mentees an opportunity to talk about what's important to them in a mentor, and then really centering that when matching the process. So if they are specifically asking for someone with a certain background or skill set, I really do try to honor what they're asking for and find a mentor who's can reflect that and support them in that.
I was reading something recently about that if the mentor and mentee have similar core values, that's a real good match. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I also think that like anyone can be a good mentor regardless, and kind of echoing what people have been saying, that sometimes the difference amongst mentors and mentees is actually a real opportunity for growth and to learn something that you wouldn't previously learn from someone who's so like you.
Well, and in the modules that I put together, I did say, you know, it's a little time intensive upfront, getting to know, like, and trust one another, and figure out if it is a workable relationship, because you know, it's not always going to work. It may not be the perfect match, but to just take what you've learned and say, okay, let's try a different combination. Let's thank one another and move on to the next match pair. It's not, it shouldn't be taken as a personal affront, but rather than invest a year going down the wrong path, to spend that time up front, get to know one another, make sure you're both a good fit, I think would be really important. I'm looking at the time, and I wanted to just dive in a couple of these stories. If there's a topic that you all are curious about, speak up and let me know. Otherwise, I was going to share just a couple sentences out of a few stories that I chose.
I have to go, Trisha, but I wanted to just share one story with the group. Then I know
Yes.
you know the story, but one of the best things that happened to me over the pandemic was going to Trisha's speed mentoring event, because I was very interested in it, and I actually wound up getting an opportunity out of that led to me being president of AAW. Hello, Gabriella. It's good to hear your voice. So it also is something to show that even in a brief instance that you are able to interact with somebody, you really can change their life, really, in the long span. So thank you, Trisha, for putting that on, and I'm grateful to have you in my circle, and it was nice to see everybody today. So I gotta feed my kid.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
So I think here is a story from Holly, who's an environmental specialist. And in her story, she writes about the importance of listening. And Betsy, was it Betsy who brought that up, being a good listener?
Carolyn.
Oh,
Carolyn.
Carolyn, right, Carolyn. A mentor is a person who looks out for you, tries to bring out the best in you, to push you towards success, and shares your secrets and lessons that they have learned along the way. When a mentor talks, you listen. She has earned your trust, not because of her job title, but because she listens back and gives good advice. So that was from Holly, who is an environmental specialist. This is my daughter-in-law, mother of my new grandchild. I'm so excited. Yeah. Her perspective, and she's an international corporate attorney. She's got a pretty hefty job. And she says, so she didn't see her life that she had any one particular mentor, but she said it's the little things all along the way. And like Diana Charbonneau just said, it was one quick thing during a speed mentoring that made a shift for her. So Christina's saying, you know, it's the combination of the little things every day that if you're looking for mentoring, you can find it. You ask, you observe, and let yourself be led by those wise people around you every day. So that's not a formal, that's a very informal approach to life. This one, I thought, this is really beautiful. It is about the beingness. Her mentor taught her. She taught me just by her way of being in life to be loving, honorable, impeccable in whatever I do. Leadership in life and work has allowed me to mentor others in how I show up in my world. I believe that mentoring is not in the doing of life. It is in our way of being in life. We might never know whose lives we have touched when we walk our talk and live our core values. Thank you, Christine. That's her story.
I love that.
I
Now,
love
yeah. Here is one. This is my niece who's 23 years old. And when she wrote this, she was 23. She is now, oh my gosh, she works for Farmers Insurance in LA. She got herself through Riverside Baptist College in 3 years with a 4.0 while she was working full-time at Banana Republic. She is a go-getter. But she said, years later, I had the opportunity for promotion and to work for Amy in her store. She was a tough boss, but not because she was cruel, but because she pushed for greatness from all of her management team. To this day, when a problem arises, I reference many of the discussions and lessons Amy taught me. Although I do not speak to her often, as I once did, her words and years of support have influenced me greatly. The mentorship that Amy gave me pushed me to grow into a successful woman and develop my leadership skills. So I think it's so, we don't even have any idea. You're never too old for a mentor, but I think we can leverage the value of mentorship if we can catch women early. And I know, I mean, my story in the book was a simple conversation. My mom had a 9th grade education. She was a waitress, and her friend, guy friend, anyways, he saw in her potential and ended up supporting her, like, you need to get a high school diploma and beyond. And she ended up getting her GED while she was waitressing, and single mother of 4 children.
Wow.
She got an AA degree in drafting during the space race in Southern California, and she was a hot ticket. She was making really good money, and you know, our lives were transformed because of his mentorship in her life. But the same man, I mean, I was 13, I was a freshman in high school, and I came home one day and Paul says, Trisha, picture yourself as a grown-up. What does that look like? And I thought, what is this guy talking about? What talks to me like that? And he said, do you live in a house? Is it a nice house? Are you married? Do you have kids? I mean, he walked me through so I visualized something. And he said, if that's what you picture for your future, you're going to have a college education. And that was a pivotal shift in my life, pivotal. And by hook or by crook, I cleaned houses. I did whatever I had to get my college diploma, and there was nobody paying for it. So, and I was the first one in my entire extended family to get a 4-year college degree. So it was that one conversation that made a difference. So we never.
Trisha,
Yeah.
I think it's important when we're advising people, or if people come to us for advice, to recognize that at this time, a college degree is not what it kind of used to be. And I think we need to advise or remind people that there are other educational training, I don't want to use that word training, but other educational opportunities that lead to good jobs other than a college education now. And I think that's really important to realize the difference between, at least when I was there, and now. There are an array of different choices that may be more accessible.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. It's a little bit different now, and I think if a person has a passion and a purpose, and they like, I know a young man who's in a construction trade. He's doing really well. Yeah, I'm not sold on college is the only way. Definitely not. But
Oh.
it being the best you can be.
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
I totally agree with Betsy about that, because now there are other options, like JTED, for instance, is one of the options that people can go after. Because I always feel kind of sorry for kids getting out of high school that have to try to make a decision about what their futures are going to be. Whereas if they get into a program, they can do that and then decide what it is that appeals to them. So it's just, I really like the fact that there are more options now.
Yeah.
Well, I personally, as a couple of you know, I'm a photographer, but I didn't really have like formal education at a college. I actually learned a lot of what I know through lynda.com. I don't know if anyone has heard of it, but it's an excellent online video training library. Very, very helpful. And I learned from there. And honestly, I learned from YouTube and a lot of books and practice and everything. And it's just a different route to go. But I mean, I still got to the point where I can do really competent, photography and all that stuff.
And you
Just
The old,
wanna-
the old apprenticeship model is
Right.
certainly applicable. Sorry,
All of you for
Chris.
coming back. So, Tricia, I just want to reflect that what you shared in your story was that Joe, was that his name? He planted a seed.
Mhm.
So I think that's something so important for someone to plant a seed about possibilities. And
Yes.
so I think that, sometimes we don't see it because we're so caught up, as a 13-year-old, who would have thought of those things? But we can plant seeds and support people to grow in, whatever they might happen to be doing. And it could be, you were talking about, Jonathan, talking about photography. My brother was the high school photographer in his high school. And he said in his yearbook that someday he wanted to be a fashion photographer in New York. Well, he didn't let go of that passion. And he went to college to get a degree, and then my mother cut him off. And he found a way to continue to do it. And so he's in New York. He's a high fashion photographer. He has been for probably 20 years. But it was a tough job. And but it was also, he found his mentors. He would be seeking out those people. So I think there's something about seeking out, those that you have a vision. And I think both Carolyn and I put Ellen Schneider were mentors. Was that you, Carolyn?
Yes.
Yes. So I remember when it was this aspect of where I was in my life and about who it was like a positive projection. Who did I want to be like? I was like, I want to be like Ellen. I love what Ellen does. I wasn't competitive with her, but she was just the most amazing woman. And so she was a mentor of mine. It was shortly after that I asked if she would coach me. And she goes, I don't coach people, but I will coach you. So you just never know what that leads to the next thing. So I think having an eye for what we desire, I think our mentors kind of inspire us.
Mhm. There is that asking for it, but sometimes, like in my case, at the age of 13, the seed was planted for me because he saw potential in me that I was too immature and blinded by hormones probably to even realize or be asking myself those questions. So, mentoring, it happens all different ages, stages, formal, informal. And I just think there's so much possibility. And today is National Mentoring Day. And I thought, well, that's a great day to celebrate it. So one of the things I would ask all of you, if you have a mentor that you feel made an impact on you, send them an email, send them a text, send them a thank you, acknowledge them today. Because I know that my mentor, Paul, he passed away, and I never got a chance to thank him.
Oh.
So thank a mentor.
That's a good idea.
Yes, Jen.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add that one of the reasons why I love or decided to mentor for SCORE is one, way back when I came back from Australia, I decided to go to SCORE just to relaunch my business here. And I love the give back component. And so, but what I loved about the first time when we had our kind of onboarding or orientation was David literally, and I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with him, but he literally said, SCORE used to be a whole bunch of just white males. And he said, we've worked hard to put the diversity in it. And that hooked me really, because that awareness of the fact that, and Trish is obviously your education, and that I'm studying a Master of Education, that modeling process is so important too. So what I've noticed is having someone who is mentoring, that sometimes you do want to connect with them, whether or not it's your industry, like someone mentioned that it's, STEM related, or if it's they're a female mentor and you didn't necessarily grow up with female mentors, or people who are engineers or whatever, that piece that connects you to that other person, whether it happens to be the color of their skin, or they're Italian, or they're from Sicily or whatever. Sometimes there's that little connection that helps you model and be like, wow, this person is like me and they're literally doing what I want to do. And so I just wanted to mention that piece because it was just so beautiful to even look at the SCORE website and look at the diversity that's in there. And I think it's also, so many people have the potential to mentor and they don't realize it, because as they say, there can be a little seed that you say. There's something that one of my mentors, he probably doesn't even remember it, but he said, the fortune is in the follow-up. And I say that all the time. And it's just those little things that really connect you to the next piece of your puzzle. And then the idea that you, in the mentoring process, it's cross-pollination. It's like, I learned from Trisha probably more than she learns from me. And so it's the idea that you're growing together and able to share, that I love about the mentoring process.
Oh, thank you, Renee. Jonathan, did you have something you wanted to say?
Not particularly.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. No, and that's also something that comes up all the time, is that mentors learn just about as much, if not more, as the mentee. So yeah, Renee, that's spot on. And another statistic that I think is fabulous is 65% of people who are mentored pay it forward and mentor others. So it's the gift that keeps giving. It grows exponentially. So yeah, and I honestly, I hear Christine, what you were saying. People are busy, 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 busy. Once a month, set aside a 1-hour lunch, and whether it's a Zoom, a phone call, you take a brown bag and go hunker down somewhere. 1 hour a month is really all that's required to have a mentoring relationship. And then in between, an email, quick, short email here or there. But I see that it can be done as not a time-consuming, overwhelming thing. If you've got some pieces in place and know how to start and how, and one of the big things is for the mentee to show up at the meeting ready to go, because it has to be driven by the mentee. They have to be coachable. They have to be willing. And if they show up ready with an agenda, take personal responsibility, because the brain that does the work does the learning. They show up, and when the mentor gives advice, if they take the initiative to apply that advice, their mentor is going to be excited, feel validated, feel important. If the mentee just sits on their thumbs and doesn't follow through with anything, they're going to get fired. It just
I
is.
think a good mentor can pick up on that pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's a reciprocal relationship. Betsy?
I was just thinking back to this weekend, and I'm sorry, I'm going to ramble a little bit, but I went to a celebration of life of a woman who was a teacher. All of her life, a humanities teacher. And the number of students, she never mentored as such, but the number of students who attended this event and stood up and talked about how she had changed their lives, how she said something one day that gave them sent them in a whole new direction, or that she understood. I mean, she took them actually on those humanities trips to Europe and so forth, and that also, but the number of students who stood up and talked about the impact of this teacher's life on them was profound. And it was never a set, like a meeting to talk about mentoring. I just feel like a once a week meeting, unless it's extremely intentional and in both sides are invested, can't do as much as just observing or listening to a person who you respect or who has wisdom. Not said very well.
No. What a blessing. What a legacy she has. That's what we all hope for. You know, what a beautiful legacy. Yeah. Well, I want to keep track of the time and respect everyone's time that's here. And thank you all for showing up and contributing and participating. And feel free to shoot me an email if you have any questions. And I'm hoping to, you know, support and advocate through the book and through the online course that I have now. And I appreciate your time. And anyone have any closing questions, comments?
Just
thank
quickly, I
you.
want to say I enjoyed your book. I flipped through, I didn't read it all, but I really enjoyed it. And I think it's a great concept.
Well, thank you. The stories make it beautiful. Thanks.
Thank you,
I'd like to
Tricia.
say-
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up. Sorry, Chris.
Okay.
I would just like to follow up a little bit about what Betsy was talking about. You know, so many times we're very concerned about what our purpose is in life. And I think we all make such a big difference, and sometimes we never know about it.
Mhm.
But every once in a while, somebody will come up to us and say, you know, what you just said just really made a difference in my life. So I think we need to keep that in mind, that we're all pretty special and we're all mentors without really even trying.
I'm going to add to that, Carolyn, because you're a mentor of mine. You and I were on a board together at one time, long time ago. And I had the most challenging situation with someone, and you gave the most sage advice to me. And I don't know if you remember this. And there was another person that was exhibiting some unhealthy behavior towards me, and I didn't know what to do. And then their brother passed away. And I said, Carolyn, I don't know what to do. This person will be upset with me if I show up at this funeral. And she said, no, you just show up. It's who you are. You're going to show. Do you remember this, Carolyn? And she just said, just show up. I'll go with you. I will support you. And she was right there with me at that funeral. It made the biggest difference because that person saw me there, even if this person had some angst towards me. And things were never the same. So thank you, Carolyn, for that simple little advice. And you were right there by my side too. So thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you for a wonderful, engaging conversation, and I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Tricia. Nice to see
Thank
everyone.
you, Tricia.
Yeah.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Nice to meet
Good meeting
you
you
all.
guys.